We have many ideals in Judaism. One of them is that when you speak, the first thing that you're supposed to do, you're supposed to open up with praising the host. So there I went ahead and I praised the host, which is the Har Bracha community, and just naturally I feel like praising you all, the hosts who are Hayovel, and oh wow, you said Jubilee, but for God's sakes, my whole book is all about you guys, Hayovel and Jubilee. But in 5th grade, my family, my parents, decided to take me out of the Jewish day school that I was attending and put me into the local public school. So I was a little bit shocked because I had been going to a Jewish school for my whole life, all of 5 years. But when I was, and of course the public school that I went to in my neighborhood in Queens, New York, was mostly Jewish anyway. I mean, that's, everybody in New York is Jewish. So but in that year I made a decision that I wanted to focus more on my Jewish identity. And because, what can I say? I was lucky. I think this is very important. I see that there are some parents in the room, and if there are people in the room that aren't parents, then they're going to be parents. And I think that it's very important to let people try their own way. Because if somebody were to look at me when I was in 5th grade or 4th grade and say, oh, he's not religious, oh, we got to make him more religious, give it time. You never know what kind of experience people are going to have at the right time. God decides. We again, another phrase that we have, that there's not a single blade of grass that God doesn't appoint that and appoint until it grow. So if God is pointing at every single piece of grass, we won't get into that now, that's arguable, but certainly for every individual and certainly for every Jewish person, and I always like to quote, well, not to quote, but to remember the book of Genesis that talks about Abraham and all of the souls that Abraham made. I'm translating from the Hebrew in Haran, where he was. Basically, that means, and it seems to me, the focus of Abraham's mandate was to bring people closer to God. Today, I would say to bring people closer to the God of Abraham, but he wouldn't say that. And he's right, because there's only one God. And those people who all of these people, especially, I'm saying, but even not those people, God is focused on them, and God has a plan for them, and God has a plan for us all. So the plan that God had for me was that in 6th grade, when I went back to the Jewish day school, there was a guy walking around who was trying to interest kids in going to jiu-jitsu, karate, to learn that kind of stuff. So I went there for a few weeks or months or whatever it was, but mostly this guy said to me, it was friends, it wasn't a teacher, it was like a jiu-jitsu instructor, so I was more close with him. He said, Gidon, would you like to come over to my house? I'm doing something really interesting, really we're going to be stuffing envelopes. Okay, if you say it, I'll do that. What was that movie? Yes, Grasshopper. Whatever he tells me. And it ended up that he was besides being a black belt, he was also the leader of the local branch of Bnei Akiva. I have a feeling that you guys have heard, certainly the veterans amongst you have heard of Bnei Akiva. Bnei Akiva is a worldwide youth movement, youth organization of religious Zionists. So he brought me over to his house to stuff the envelope that were mailed. You guys know what an envelope is? It's like a mail letter. Yeah. The older ones amongst them. Can you imagine? Can you come over here and press send for me? But he introduced me to the idea of Bnei Akiva and Religious Zionism. And towards the end of the year, he even came to my parents, came to our home, and said, "Listen, I'd really like it if your son Gideon at the time would be able to come to our summer camp. So that happened, and what can I say, I fell in love. Because the ideals that I was taught over there in this Bnei Akiva were the ideals of religious Zionism. Throughout Jewish history, especially since the exile, or at least the way that we read Jewish history, the focus has been on the Torah. The Torah has been called the Jewish people's portable homeland. And really, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because when you have a people who live in a homeland, okay, they're living in a homeland. When they're exiled from the homeland, then it doesn't take many generations until they forget about the homeland. There was a development of what I call ultra-Orthodox. They said, listen, what we need to do is to focus only on the Torah, to not have any connection with anybody who's got anything besides the Torah. And that is the only way that we'll be able to survive. So this community and the non-ultra-Orthodox, if you will, community kept growing further and further apart. And then add into this mess the nationalism winds that were growing all over the world. I won't go into that for other nations and peoples, but for the Jewish people, this of course was Zionism, a movement to bring the Jewish people back to their homeland. Okay, so the assimilated people didn't like that. They said, we don't want to have anything to do. We already told you that Berlin is our Jerusalem. We don't need Jerusalem anymore. And the ultra-Orthodox took a look at who's doing that, and they said, well, you guys are less religious than us. We don't know what other isms you have up your sleeve. So we don't want to have anything to do with you either. We're fine right here in our Batei Midrash, in our study halls. We're happy to let all of the non-Jews, whether it be in Poland or Russia or even in Morocco, wherever the Jewish people might be at this point, let the world develop, not develop, I couldn't care less. Just make sure that I can sit and learn the Torah and be the kind of Jew that I think that God wants me to be. There were many Jewish teachers who said, you can't do this. You can't say that Berlin is your Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is Jerusalem. That is the uniqueness of the land of Israel. So what you had, again, at the beginning of the Zionist movement, you had the ultra-Orthodox, who were against anything new, and you had the assimilateds, who were pretty much against anything Jewish. And then you had the Zionists, who were for creating, as it were, a new kind of Judaism, a nationalistic Judaism that would be able to create a Jewish state, probably in the land of Israel, but anywhere it would work, some of the early Zionists believed. Then you had something very special. You had what is often called religious Zionists that synthesize all of these things together. They synthesize, they hold high and believe in the Torah, in following God's instruction book, in loving all the things that He has to teach us, in passing these ideals and these ideas from one generation to another, to understand that we're just links in that chain. These people also recognize the importance, not only the importance, but the ideological and divine importance of the Jewish nation. In other words, nationalism is not a dirty word according to religious nationalists. Because it's not just a question of, well, I follow the Torah, my neighbor doesn't, the hell with him. No, we are a nation. There's a word in Hebrew that I'll teach you. It's tzibur. Or maybe some people know, it certainly sounds like you guys know. Tzibur, it's tzadi beit reish. Let me write it on the board. Tzadi beit reish. that it's well known that stands for Tzadikim, Beinonim, Rishaim. A tzibur is a congregation, a group of people, a cohesive group of people, but it's made up of tzadikim, righteous ones, beinonim, medium ones, and rishaim, even evil ones. Okay, it works okay with the letters. But I'm gonna give you something on the side over here. There's another word that has those three letters, the tzadi, the bet, and the resh. They are tzabar. Anybody know what that tzabar is? How about a sabra? So in other words, here we are in Israel, and we are growing our very own community, our very own nation. So the idea of nationalism is an important religious one, an important Torah value, that the Jewish people is a Jewish people and not just individuals. And finally, the idea even of assimilation, as it were. In other words, the idea of having part in this whole world, not just letting the non-Jews do whatever they want. You know, if they're going to invent stuff, let them invent stuff. If they're going to have a good government, let them have a good government. It's going to be bad, who cares? No. We are going to take responsibility for our own lives, for our own destiny, and for our own state and government. So these three ideas, as another way of saying them, are Torah Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and Am Yisrael. The Torah of Israel, the land of Israel, and the people of Israel. These are the ideals that I learned in Bnei Akiva, me and thank God hundreds of thousands of others over the past 100 years or so. And it just vitalized me so much that after about 3 years of going to these summer camps, my parents asked me if for 10th grade, after I was in 9th grade in a not so good high school, would you like to go to Israel for 10th grade? So I jumped at the chance.